Hi there, I'm Rebecca and a really warm welcome back to my channel created by Rebecca. In this week's video we are going to be on plein air painting and we're going to be giving some of the things I've been buying over the last few months a bit of a test drive. Let's get started. Our painting visit takes us to Doddington Place Gardens. Here is the lovely plan that it comes with. It's set on about 10.5 acres of land bordered by some park, and it has some incredibly famous wobbly hedges cut from yew. I can't think what the clipping is called, but they look like bubbling clouds. It's not cloud pruning, that's different. For my first drawing I sat here at the pond looking up the avenue of silver birches. Then we moved to the folly and I painted a view at the back looking round into the little woodland area that takes you through back to the pond. Then I sat in front of the flower bed just beyond the tea rooms that looks at some very formally clipped yew hedging that takes you down into the formal sunken garden. And then I went into my favourite bit of the garden, which is a little walled garden. It's got some little formal sort of parterre beds and two gorgeous gateways, which, yeah, they're lovely. They're like little secret garden entrances. Here's the kit I took with me. We've got my portable painter palette. And if I slip off the band and the clip, you can see you simply take off the black case and then slide them onto the end of the palette itself and they become your water containers. I did an unboxing of the portable painter palette. It's one of the first videos on this channel, so do feel free to go and have a look at that. I'll pop a card above. Then I've got a jar with some clean water and I'm popping half into each. That means I can have a dirty pot and then a cleaner pot, and I'm keeping my little jam jar handy because I'm going to want to pour my water back into it afterwards. I do not want to be emptying that water anywhere into the environment. I took some pencils. I took a couple of Prismacolor Kohl Erase pencils, which are incredibly useful for sketching, but for this one I did use my very old Rotring mechanical pencil, which I have had since art college. I also took a huge selection of brushes, which I really didn't need, but there you go. And it's my first try with my Sea Whites of Brighton A4 landscape watercolour sketchbook, I think they call it. There's 18 colours in my portable painter palette. It should only be 12, but I managed to expand it slightly by using the little well that they put the paintbrush into. And you can see that from those 18 colours I can achieve this absolute kaleidoscope of colours. You might think that it is quite limited for greens, bearing in mind that it's meant to be taken on plein air. I've only got a rich green gold and a Perylene green, but if you look at the chart you can see that I can mix a whole variety of greens. Fresh spring greens, deeper foresty greens, olives. I really am not limited. I just have to do a bit of mixing. Convenience mixes are great, but they take up space. So I warmed up with a sketch of the very formal silver birch walk that is beyond the pond, but I very quickly realised that it was too hot and I wasn't getting any enjoyment from that. the dogs wouldn't settle, and I was very aware that something like that was going to take me a fair bit of time to paint, and I had my husband with me, and that wouldn't have been very fair on him. So we then moved around to the back of the folly, into the shade, relative shade. It did get quite hot there. We had something to eat, and the dogs had their lunch, and they settled down a little bit more after that, and I sketched and painted a little bit. And you can see that I've divided my page up using masking tape here to try and make some slightly less daunting scenes. This is the formal yew hedging that drops down into the sunken garden, appropriately. And this weird little cutout is actually sculpted into the hedge, and it has a little column, a little stone column with, I think it's got an urn on it. Really strange. It was also incredibly bright and incredibly hot where we were, and I struggled to work out what colours I was mixing and what I was putting down on the paper, but actually once they were dry and I was back home, it looks okay. And I met these lovely people while I was painting.
Excuse me, do you mind me if I have a look?
You can. I've barely started. This is a view.
Excuse me for getting close because I've got that other side.
That's fine. So I'm doing a view that's down by the folly. And then I was just going to start drawing this bit.
You're good at this,
and
aren't
then
you?
this is the Plein garden.
You're good at this. You've got one you've done before?
No. What have I got? Oh.
Excuse me, I'm occupied.
So am I.
Katie.
They look gorgeous.
That's right.
Oh my life, that's beautiful.
Degrees.
Yeah, I used to paint. I didn't use watercolours though, I used oils.
I'm very new to watercolours, so I'm trying gouache.
If you're new to watercolours, that is brilliant. Look at the way you've got the darkness in the leaves in the back and the light coming forward where it hits the thing. Isn't that gorgeous?
It's lovely. It's really lovely.
Yeah. And the way the path's been done too. You're talented, love.
Thank you. Some other ones are rye.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I
Gee, you're
a
brilliant.
bit of line work as well.
Okay, so have you done any exhibitions?
No, not as an artist. I do.
You
sell,
slung it in somewhere and sold one.
I sell crafts,
Uh-huh.
so I do some folk art painting as well, and little houses and cute little things. So I sell those. If we come on to where I'm getting on to gouache, so I do things like that, but on little canvases. This is me exploring that. My garden.
It's your garden. I'm going to have to try and do one in my garden, but I can't see so well now. Oh, those birds are gorgeous. And look at that fox. Oh, you are so talented, love. Is that your husband there? I'm sorry I'm boosting her up a bit, but they are
Go
good.
for it.
Well, it'd give you a peaceful life if she's well satisfied, wouldn't it?
This is my exploring sketchbook, so I just mess around with lots of ideas.
Yeah, but everything you touch is good.
Thank you.
Oh, look at the doggies! You are talented, love. Really talented.
It's very kind. Thank you.
No, I
I
mean it.
appreciate it.
Thank you
Well.
for showing us.
You're welcome.
By playing you that excerpt, I wasn't trying to toot my own horn. I wanted you to see that you can meet some really lovely people while you're out painting. You can get confidence from talking to people. Now we're back in my garden, and we're going to start working on the sketch that I did of the little walled garden. This is one of the gates in that walled garden. And this is the other gate. It's much more grand. I'm starting with a mop brush. This is a Royal and Langnickel Zen mop brush. And I'm just wetting the sky section Then I'm taking up a bit of the cerulean blue and sketchily washing it into that damp surface on the paper. I can intensify it by dabbing in stronger pigments, so with less water, but because the surface is still damp, it's tending to expand and blend all on its own. Now I've got a touch of indigo mixed in with my cerulean just to really give me some seriously deep bits of blue. The sky was just the most gorgeous colour, with lovely fluffy white clouds as well. In fact, you can just about see my camera in the bottom left hand corner there. Now with a much smaller brush, I'm wetting the areas that will be the brickwork, and I'm mixing a terracotta-y colour with some of the French ochre, the Aussie red gold, a little bit of the vermilion hue, and I think I added a bit of sepia there, but a bit much sepia, so I'm just remixing that. And because it's a brick surface, I don't mind working in smaller strokes, because I'm going to want to put that kind of detail into the painting at the later stages. So to have washes in that kind of blocky pattern helps. Just either side of the steps, there was this strange stone section. I guess it kind of tied in with the tower, the folly. So yeah, just these two lovely little sections of stonework amongst the brick. Now I'm mixing nickel azo yellow and rich green gold together. They are both really punchy colours, but when you're trying to capture the light that hits the sort of the freshest, greenest growth on a tree, it's a brilliant colour. It's just luminous. And until I bought these two colours, I always found that light on green growth really hard to kind of translate onto the paper. I'm starting to wash some colour onto the steps. And then bring some deeper colours into the brickwork. It's quite a breezy day and it's also sunny and warm, so any washes I put down are drying really quickly. Now I'm coming in with some sepia, and I think I've probably also got a little bit of neutral tint mixed in here as well to create my darkest shadows. Because of the way the sun was falling into the garden and the time of day, they were really crisp, tight shadows. There's also some lovely changes of brick effects along the top of the wall where you came onto the capping stones. Some were laid at a 45-degree angle, and I'll try and capture those. And then there were several layers of capping stones above them. There's two shrubs either side of the gateway and steps, and every time I go into this garden I think they really should be olives, really old gnarly olives. I don't think they are. The they had been pruned to within an inch of their lives, so all you had was some little tufty bits of growth, and it was too hot to actually go over there and inspect what they were. But I wanted to make them quite a feature of the gateway. In the corner there was this twisted trunk shrub or small tree, and then on the right hand side coming towards the viewer is a row of yew trees making a hedge, a really flat hedge, but they had again pruned it to within an inch of its life on the walled garden side. So you'd got these regimentally straight yew tree trunks with just little tufts of dark green coming out. I've mixed turquoise and a tiny bit of nickel as a yellow to make a slightly greenier turquoise for the gate. It has a wooden door and then the iron gate over the top of that. Now I'm starting to mix some slightly deeper colours of green, adding in some indanthrone blue, cerulean blue, just to get lots of different tones and shades and start to give the shrubs some sense of dimension. And starting to fill in the rest of the brickwork. Now I'm going to add some really deep dark greens to the shrubbery, again to help give it a 3-dimension. Although actually these dried back quite a long way, so I do have to come back in and have another try at that. A strip of soil has been exposed where the yew trees have been clipped back on the right hand side. And that's nice, it gives us a lovely perspective line into the painting. You can see I've started to add some of the new yew growth, and I'm now adding in some tufts of growth onto those 2 statement shrubs. Now I've mixed a little tiny bit extra vermilion and Aussie Red Gold into the brickwork colours that I was using, just to warm it up and start to layer on some different tones. Here I'm adding some circles, which seem a bit weird. They're in nickel as a yellow, and they are going to be allium heads. You can see I've started to add the detail of the 45-degree angle brickwork at the top of the wall by just hitting the shadows that they form. And I'm starting to pick out the edge of the steps, mainly with neutral tone, but there's a touch of sepia in there as well. I'm starting to layer on extra colour, deeper colour onto the gateway, and I'm being quite rough about it. I don't want it to look smooth and perfect because it's an old wooden door and it's kind of knobbly and peely and yeah, weathered. And now I'm picking out some of the bricks on edge that go around the steps. Now I'm using a little bit of artistic license and popping in some kind of lavendery shape, low growing shrubby things, just to soften the edge between the paving and the wall. As areas of the painting dry, I can then come back and start to build up the tone and shade with fresh washes. Now I'm painting in one of the 4 rectangular beds that are in the centre of this walled garden. They were ripped out a couple of years ago. I think they had box hedging around them. Those were taken out and then a much softer planting was put in, but to be honest, it kind of needs something. It's a bit too soft and it's been so dry, everything's gone a bit floppy and it looks like it's feeling a bit droughty. And in actual fact, the alliums that I've painted up against the wall don't appear against the wall. They are actually in those rectangular beds, but I didn't want them there. I wanted to put them towards the back. So I've just got lots of different greens and I'm washing in different shaped leaves and different tones. I'm just trying to build up almost like a scree garden really. They're all quite drought tolerant looking plants in there. There's a climbing rose coming over from the other side of the wall. It was white, but I felt it needed to be a different colour, so I went with Rose of Ultramarine mixed with a tiny bit of quinacridone rose to make it a pinkier purple, and that is helping to tie in with the colour that I've used on the allium heads now. And I'm also going to be putting some of that purpley colour into the lavenders and so on that I've added in around the garden. And now I'm coming in with a really fine brush. This is one of the Art Master miniature brushes, and I'm adding the dark lines for the ironwork on the gate. This is mostly neutral tint with a hint of the sepia in it, which is nice. It doesn't go, I'm black. It's got nuance to the colours, and it's quite a decorative gate. I had to hold my breath quite a lot while I was painting these lines in because they're tiny. And then with that tiny brush I'm coming through and just adding some extra details. I've washed some buff titanium across the ground surface, and now I'm using my tiny brush just to give the suggestion of the crazy paving that's in here, and also to put in the stems on the alliums. And now I'm adding the shadows that are falling against the wall. And then trying to give a sense of what's going on this right hand side with the bare stems of the pruned yew trees. And there we go, all finished. It takes a bit of nerve to do painting or drawing outdoors, and it's been a while. But I did talk to some really lovely people. I even met somebody else who's got Daxies, so I mean, that's always a lovely thing. As you saw, Katie really enjoyed her day trip. She made lots of new friends. Here's the painted spread. I'm really pleased with the way the paper took the water in this one. Particularly the top one with the topiary hedges and the main painting. I put quite a lot of liquid colour on there,
and it really took it well, but it also, it didn't just soak straight into the paper immediately, so it meant that I could blend and sort of scrub bits around without the paper starting to come apart, which with some books I have had that happen. This is a more expensive book than I would normally go for, but so far it's been worth it. Right, that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, share and subscribe to me here on YouTube. And until next time, bye.